The night air was thick with the scent of desert winds and distant storms, as the polished ebony doors of the grand palace burst open. The billionaire sheikh stood tall beneath the glittering chandeliers, his dark eyes blazing with a fury that shook even his regal composure. Clutched tightly in his gloved hand was a folded letter, an accusation veiled in mystery, a challenge that threatened the delicate threads holding his world together. At the heart of his torment lay a fragile secret, a child, abandoned and silent, her very existence unraveling the legacy he was sworn to protect. Far from the silk-draped halls and golden vaults, in a modest clinic nestled on the outskirts of a somber town, the gentle hum of life carried on. The humble nurse moved with but tender grace, her fingers brushing softly over the pale face of the abandoned girl she had found hours before. The sterile white walls, punctuated by faded photographs and the faint aroma of antiseptic, bore witness to a quiet courage, a devotion not bound by wealth or power, but by compassion. Her world was simple, yet full of unspoken battles fought in silence. The sudden knock at the clinic's heavy wooden door shattered the fragile calm. The nurse's heart fluttered with unease as she opened it to reveal the imposing figure of the billionaire sheikh. His presence commanded the narrow space, a tidal wave of authority mingled with a shadow of desperation. "This child," he said, voice low and edged with steel, "belongs to a fate far beyond your humble walls. She carries a truth I have tried to bury, but now it demands to be known." His gaze pierced through her with the weight of centuries, yet something vulnerable flickered beneath the surface, an unspoken plea for trust. Compassion warred with caution in the nurse's eyes. Who was he to dictate the destiny of this silent child? Yet beneath his formidable exterior, she glimpsed the torment of a man trapped between honor and regret, their words tangled in charged silences, a dance of restrained emotion and clashing wills. "Why are you here now, after years of silence?" she dared to ask. His jaw clenched. "Because the past has a way of catching up, and the future depends on her." Before the night could breathe, a whisper escaped his lips, a name spoken. With trembling reverence and fear, a name tied to the girl's origin, to secrets buried deep within the shifting sands of his desert kingdom. The nurse's fingers tightened around the child's thin blanket, her mind racing with questions as the shadows in the room deepened. What truth could so shake a billionaire sheikh to his core? And what storm was coming to upend their fragile alliance? Before the next secret of this desert kingdom is revealed, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be written, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you following this saga? And what twist do you expect next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to continue. Thank you for being with us. The moon hung low over the desert, a silver guardian watching silently as the palace shimmered beneath a tapestry of stars. Inside, the air buzzed with an unspoken tension, thick and suffocating. The billionaire Sheikh's grip tightened around the folded letter, crumpling its edges as his mind raced. Every word scrawled in elegant script had struck like a dagger, each accusation peeling back layers of dignity he had long tried to preserve. The secret child, the inconvenient truth lurking in shadows, echoed relentlessly through his thoughts. His kingdom, his legacy, seemed suddenly fragile beneath the weight of this revelation. He turned from the grand hall, steps echoing hollowly against marble floors, and made his way to the secluded clinic where the nurse guarded the silent girl. The contrast was jarring, the sumptuous luxury of his world colliding with the stark simplicity of that small room. Yet the fortress of sterile white walls held more truth tonight than any gilded throne. The door swung open to reveal her, soft-eyed and resolute, her fingers curling protectively around the child's frail form. The Sheikh's dark gaze softened, a glimpse of vulnerability slipping through his hardened armor. "This child," he began, voice low but unwavering, "is not merely an obligation. I owe her a future." The nurse swallowed the lump in her throat, memories of the first night she found the abandoned infant flooding back. The desperation etched in the baby's pale face haunted her still. She glanced up, searching for traces of sincerity beneath his commanding presence. "Why did you come only now?" Her voice was steady, but the question hung heavy between them. "After all these years of silence, why?" His jaw clenched, haunted eyes flickering with pain. "Because I was a man blinded by pride, afraid of the truth that would unravel everything I built. But now, the past refuses to stay buried." He stepped closer, the scent of oud and sandalwood trailing behind him like a shadow. The nurse noticed the trembling in his clenched fists, the weight of centuries pressing into one man's soul. "Her mother," he whispered, voice barely above the desert wind. "A love I once thought eternal. But secrets, dark, unforgivable secrets, tore us apart. The name hung between them, fragile, incendiary." The nurse's heart raced, every nerve alert. The child stirred, eyelids fluttering open, to reveal eyes that mirrored the storm burning in the Sheikh's gaze. "What truth does she carry?" The nurse's whisper was barely audible, yet it demanded an answer that could either heal or destroy. A shadow crossed the Sheikh's face, the weight of unspoken regrets settling deeper in his chest. "She is the living proof of betrayal, and the key to my redemption." Behind closed doors, the walls seemed to absorb their fragile alliance, the space charged with memories neither dared voice aloud. The nurse moved quietly to warm a cloth, her hands steady despite the turmoil surging within. "I've kept her safe," she said softly. "But she needs more than safety. She needs a place to belong, to be seen." The Sheikh's eyes narrowed, an internal battle fought behind that regal composure. Could he truly offer the sanctuary she deserved? A home not built from fear, but from acceptance? "Then I must claim her," he declared finally, voice cracking beneath layers of controlled fury and raw hope. "Not out of obligation, but out of the vow I failed to keep long ago." Moonlight spilled across the child's sleeping face, as if to bless the fragile truce forming under its watchful glow. The nurse's gaze lingered on the Sheikh, searching for the man within the legend. The billion-dollar empire draped on shoulders heavy with shame and longing. Outside, the desert whispered secrets through shifting sands, calling to ancient traditions and forsaken promises. As the sheikh turned to leave, a sudden chill curled through the air. A faint shadow flickered at the threshold, unseen yet palpably present, an echo of the past, ready to unravel the fragile threads binding them all. He stopped, sensing the coming storm, the silence screaming a warning. Behind his eyes, the letter burned anew, words twisting like serpents in his mind. And then, in the stillness, a soft whisper broke the darkness, a name spoken so quietly it barely stirred the night air. The sheikh's breath caught. It was the name of the mother, and the secret she guarded with her last breath. And with that name, everything changed. The desert held its breath, waiting for the night to reveal its final twist. The flicker of candlelight cast trembling shadows across the marble floors of the palace. As the billionaire sheikh's footsteps echoed down the endless corridors, each stride carried the weight of a man unraveling, caught between the sprawling empire he ruled and the fragile thread of a secret now threatening to shatter all he held dear. His mind replayed the nurse's quiet defiance, her unwavering gaze that tested his resolve, and beneath the walls of power, a knot of fear tightened around his heart. The letter in his hand crumpled once more, its inked words blazing accusations that cut deeper than any sword. Betrayal, abandonment, lies, each syllable a hammer striking the fortress of pride he had built over the years. He stopped before a high window. The desert night stretched beneath the pale moonlight, like a silent witness to his torment. Beyond the glittering sands, the world whispered unforgiving truths. The child, their child, was more than a secret. She was a reckoning. Behind the richly embroidered curtains, a faint sigh drifted through the room, as if the palace itself held its breath. His gaze hardened, and he turned sharply, determined that this night would not pass with mere shadows and unspoken regrets. A summons was sent to his closest confidant, Khalid, whose steady presence in court had long been a silent pillar of strength. Moments later, the heavy door opened and Khalid entered, bowing his head respectfully before speaking softly. "The nurse awaits your word, Your Highness. The child remains under her care, but she fears what's to come." The sheikh's lips pressed into a thin line. "Prepare the private chambers. She will stay under guard, but she must be shielded, not just from enemies, but from myself." Khalid nodded, a flicker of understanding behind his calm eyes. "And the letter? Burn it," the sheikh ordered. "No one else shall bear this burden tonight." As the guards moved silently through the palace, the atmosphere thickened with a charge that felt almost sacred. A fragile alliance forged between a man drowning in his past and the woman who had become an unlikely guardian to his forsaken child. Night deepened. In the modest clinic, the nurse sat beside the child, her fingers stroking the tangled curls that crowned the baby's head. The quiet serenity of the moment was shattered by a whispered voice in the dark. "She's stronger than the storm," the sheikh murmured, stepping into the faint glow of moonlight. Pooling across the floor, his presence filled the room, immense and commanding, yet vulnerable in this softened space. The child's eyes fluttered open, deep pools reflecting the turmoil in the man who dared claim her. "Has she spoken yet?" he asked, voice barely above a breath. The nurse shook her head. "Not a word. But her gaze, it carries questions no one dares ask aloud." He sank to one knee beside her, a tremor betraying the steel in his exterior. "I have failed her," he confessed, voice cracking. "Not as a ruler, but as a father." For a heartbeat, the nurse saw a man stripped bare, a soul haunted, aching to rewrite the past. "Then tell me," she urged gently, "what must be done now?" His eyes met hers, storms of regret and hope warring beneath the surface. "Protect her, shield her from the darkness, from the whispers that will echo down the halls of my palace." She nodded, sensing the fragile truce deepening between them, a bond woven not by blood alone, but by shared sacrifice. The air shifted as footsteps approached, soft but deliberate. The nurse's heart quickened. Before anyone could announce themselves, a voice broke the silence, cold and venomous. "So the secret has a face, at last," it sneered from the doorway. From the shadows emerged Layla, the Sheikh's estranged sister, her eyes glittering with disdain and something darker, an old pain wrapped in fury. "She's a child of disgrace," Layla spat, stepping fully into the room. "Do you truly believe hiding her in some forgotten clinic will cleanse the family name?" The Sheikh rose slowly, muscles tense yet measured. "I will protect her, not for appearances, but because she is mine." Layla laughed bitterly. "Yours or hers? What good is a bloodline if it's poisoned with lies?" The nurse instinctively moved before the tension could snap, placing a firm hand on the Sheikh's arm. "Enough," she said steadily. "This child deserves peace, not war." Layla's glare softened, a flicker of hidden sorrow breaking through. "Don't let your pity blind you, brother. The court watches and waits, and enemies circle like vultures." The room seemed to close in with the weight of unspoken threats and old betrayals. The Sheikh's voice dropped to a vow, icy and unyielding. "Let them come. I will face the storm, but she will have her place. No matter the cost." The nurse met his glance, sensing the steel beneath the vulnerability. The journey ahead would be perilous. As Layla's figure receded into the darkness, a cold wind stirred the drapes. The child's fingers curled tightly around the nurse's silk shawl, her gaze locked onto the Sheikh as if knowing the battles to come. Outside, the desert sky blazed with distant lightning, a silent herald of the tempest gathering beyond the palace gates. And in the flickering shadows, a figure cloaked in mystery watched from afar, a whisper of vengeance, a secret that would shake the foundations of the Sheikh's world to its core. The night held its breath once more, poised on the edge of revelation, and the fragile hope for redemption threatened to unravel beneath the weight of the secrets yet to fall. The flickering moonlight slipped through the heavy curtains, casting shifting shadows across the vast room where the billionaire Sheikh stood motionless, the weight of his kingdom and his secrets pressing down on him like the desert heat that never truly faded. His dark eyes bore into the quiet darkness, searching for answers among the memories tangled within the crumpled letter still clenched in his hand. The accusation it carried burned deep, a slow, relentless fire that threatened to consume every carefully built wall around his heart. Yet it was not the words alone that haunted him, but the fragile truth behind them. The child, lying quietly in the modest clinic just beyond the palace walls. A child whose very existence had become a threat to the legacy he had fiercely protected. The door creaked open, and Khalid entered, his steady presence a rare comfort in the endless storm swirling inside the sheikh. "She awaits your command," he said softly, eyes flickering with unspoken concern. Without a word, the sheikh nodded, his footsteps echoing sharply against the marble as they made their way through secret passages far from the glittering halls. Every breath he took carried a mix of oud and something sharper, an edge of desperation. When he stepped across the threshold of the clinic, the atmosphere shifted. The sterile white walls and faint scent of antiseptic clashed violently with the grandeur and power he embodied. The nurse looked up from the child's bedside, her gentle fingers brushing against the baby's tangled curls with a protective tenderness that stirred something long buried within him. He forced his voice steady despite the turmoil. "She is not just a secret I must hide. She is my responsibility." The nurse's eyes searched his face, wary yet not unkind. "Why come now?" she asked quietly. "After so many years of silence, why break it tonight?" A heavy silence hung between them, broken only by the soft rustle of the child's light breaths. His jaw clenched, the lines around his mouth hardening. "I was blind. Pride deafened me to truths I feared would destroy what I love. But the past is relentless. It chases you down until you face it." He stepped closer, the faint scent of sandalwood and desert spices leaving a trail behind him. His gaze dropped to the child, vulnerability slipping like water beneath the armor of authority. "Her mother?" he whispered, voice cracking under the weight of memory. "I loved her once with a purity I thought eternal, but betrayal carved cruel scars between us." The nurse tightened her grip on the blanket. The fragile infant stirred, fluttering eyelids, revealing deep, stormy eyes, echoes of a bond neither fully understood. "What truth does she carry?" The nurse's voice was barely above a breath, but it demanded revelation. "He is the living proof of a betrayal I thought I could bury," the sheikh confessed, fingers trembling for the first time in years. "And yet, she is the reason I must seek redemption." The room seemed to shrink around them, silence thick with unsaid words and half-formed fears. The nurse prepared a warm cloth silently, the familiarity grounding her amidst the chaos. "She needs more than just safety here," she said softly. "She must belong somewhere, where she is wanted." The sheikh's dark eyes flickered with doubt, pain cutting through the cold resolve. "I have spent too long hiding in shadows. It's time I claim what is mine, not out of obligation, but out of love I refuse to admit." A tentative alliance settled between them, a fragile promise made beneath the humble glow of a single lantern. Suddenly, the clinic's heavy door opened again. A presence charged the air with tension, before a voice slithered through the quiet room, icy laced with scorn. "So the secret has finally surfaced." The estranged sister's words cut through the stillness like a jagged blade. Layla stepped into the room, eyes blazing with fury and a pain that twisted into something dangerously close to hatred. Her gaze snapped to the child, cradled protectively by the nurse, and then to the sheikh, standing with a torment no throne could ease. "She's a blemish on our family's name," Layla spat with venom. "Do you really believe hiding her in some forgotten clinic will erase the disgrace?" The sheikh's fists clenched, veins standing out white beneath his skin. "She is mine," he said with relentless conviction, "and I will protect her, no matter the cost." Layla's cruel laughter echoed in the cold room. "Your cost is already too high. This secret won't stay buried. It will consume you, your throne, your legacy." Her words hung in the thick silence, a poison seeping through the cracks the sheikh tried so hard to seal. The nurse stepped between them, steady and unyielding. "Enough. This child deserves peace, not this bitter war." For the first time, Layla's eyes softened, shadowed memories flickering beneath her rage. "Mark my words, brother. Enemies circle, waiting for your family to bleed. Protecting her won't save you. It will make you vulnerable." The sheikh's voice dropped to a vow, raw and resolute. "Let them watch. I am ready for the storm. She will have her place in this world, and I will not turn away from what I must do." The nurse met the sheikh's gaze, the silence between them fraught with unspoken promises and dangers looming just beyond the horizon. Outside, the desert winds howled, rattling the ancient walls like a warning. And from the shadows behind the courtyard's twisted olive trees, a figure watched. Cloaked in darkness, their eyes gleamed with cold intent. The next move in this deadly game already planned. The night held its breath one last time before the storm broke, and the fragile hope that had begun to kindle between the billionaire sheikh and the child was on the precipice of shattering forever. The chill in the air deepened as the echoes of Layla's harsh words faded into the sterile walls of the clinic. The billionaire sheikh stood rigid, the weight of decades pressing upon him heavier than the desert sun. His dark eyes, usually so controlled, brimmed with an unspoken storm. The child in the nurse's arms stirred again, her fragile heartbeat, a fragile tether, holding him to a world he had long tried to deny. The nurse, sensing the battle raging just beneath his regal facade, stepped closer. Her voice was soft but resolute. "She will not survive in silence forever. She needs to know who she is, where she belongs." He exhaled slowly, the scent of sandalwood and oud seeming to deepen with the gravity of the moment. "I have lived too long in the shadow of my pride," he confessed, voice rough like desert stone. "Too long denying a truth that hungers to be seen. But now, the walls I built to keep her secret crumble with each passing hour." The fragile infant's gaze met his, her dark eyes reflecting storms yet unborn. "She carries the mark of a legacy I failed to protect," he whispered, almost to himself, "and the burden of my mistakes." The nurse's fingers tightened instinctively on the soft blanket wrapped around the child. "Then it is a burden you must carry with her and for her." A heavy knock fractured the fragile stillness, the sound sharp against the quiet hum of the room. Both turned toward the door as it creaked open once more, a figure stepping out from the shadows. Khalid's steady presence filled the threshold, calm yet heralding the coming tempest. His voice was low but firm. "The palace watches, Your Highness. Rumors spread like wildfire. The court is restless. Whispers of scandal swirl, eager to tear this family apart." The Sheikh's jaw tightened further, each muscle taut with the knowledge that the war had only begun. "Then let them. Watch," he growled. "They will see that the child of this house will not be cast aside." The nurse met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "And what of her future here? This palace is not kind to shadows, especially those born from secrets." A flicker of pain crossed his face. "I will build her a fortress, not of stone and gold, but of truth and protection." His voice cracked, weighed down by years of silence and regret. Outside, the desert wind howled against ancient walls, carrying threats and promises alike. The quiet was broken only by the soft coo of a dove nesting beyond the window. A fragile symbol, perhaps, of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Suddenly, the child's small hand reached upward, her fingers curling hesitantly against the Sheikh's palm. A silent plea. A fragile lifeline bridging two souls divided by secrets, yet bound irrevocably. His breath hitched as emotion spilled past the walls of pride. He bent slowly, the fine lines of his face etched with vulnerability. "I will not fail you again," he vowed, voice a cracked whisper that thundered louder than any decree. The nurse's heart ached, witnessing the dissolution of the man who had carried his world alone for too long. "She will need more than promises," she said gently. "She will need your strength." He nodded, steeling himself as the rapid footsteps of approaching guards echoed down the corridor. The door opened again, and this time the startled eyes of the palace's chief advisor appeared, eyes glittering with a mix of concern and expedience. "Your Highness," he said cautiously, "news has reached us that the opposition within the council plans to exploit this situation. They believe your authority is weakened." His glance moved to the child, and the bloodline questioned. A flicker of cold calculation sparked behind the Sheikh's gaze. The opulence of the palace suddenly felt like a cage, the golden halls turning into arenas of political warfare. "Then let them come prepared to face more than whispers," he replied, voice hardening. The nurse's fingers brushed the child's cheek, her eyes lingering on the Sheikh's. "The greatest threat will not come from outside, but from those closest, and from the secrets still buried." His dark eyes narrowed, shadows stretching beneath the chandeliers. "Then I will unearth every secret. I will protect what is mine, even if it means facing the fires burning within." The room fell into tense silence, broken only by the steady breath of the sleeping child and the distant roll of thunder echoing like a warning over the desert sands. Outside the window, a gilded falcon statue caught the moonlight, its gaze sharp and unyielding, a silent sentinel of a kingdom on the brink. Suddenly, the soft whisper of silk brushing against marble echoed again, chilling and precise. A shadow detached itself from the darkened corner of the clinic, and a voice as cold as desert night cracked the silence. "She is not simply a secret to be claimed. She is a weapon a truth that will ignite the downfall of every carefully laid plan you have ever made. The Sheikh's eyes flared, recognition dawning with dangerous clarity. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a figure cloaked in midnight, eyes gleaming with ruthless intent. A ghost from the past, intent on reshaping the future. The fragile alliance, so recently forged under the desert moon, trembled violently. The child's wide eyes met the new threat, unaware that the battle for her soul and the Sheikh's empire was only just beginning. And in that breathless moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath before shattering utterly under the fury soon to be unleashed. The chill in the clinic's air deepened, thickening around the polished marble of the palace, tucked beneath the desert stars. The billionaire sheikh stood by the window, his silhouette cut sharply against the vast corona of the moonlight. The folded letter burned at the corner of his mind like a never-healing wound. Khalid's voice earlier still echoed softly in the halls. Warnings of court intrigue, rumors spreading like wildfire, and enemies circling hungrily. But none of it compared to the storm stirring just beyond his guarded heart. He turned sharply, the weight of obligation and love pressing him toward the modest clinic, just beyond the palace gates. Every step resonated with a desperation few could imagine, a yearning to claim a child he had forsaken, but was irrevocably bound to. Inside, the nurse watched him approach, the warmth of the small room contrasting with the cold tension swirling through the nights beyond. The child, swaddled tightly in a faded shawl, lay still, her stormy eyes closing briefly before opening once more, mirroring everything the sheikh longed to protect and feared to confront. He knelt beside her, voice low, burdened with a confession. "I've tried to bury my past beneath gold and silence," he said, the steady scent of oud and desert wind lingering on his skin. "But this child is the compass I can no longer ignore." The nurse's gaze searched his face, grappling with the man whose regal exterior concealed a fractured soul. "She needs more than protection," she whispered, brushing a stray curl from the child's pale forehead. "She needs a place to call home, a future built on truth, not shadows." A flicker of vulnerability flashed through the sheikh's dark eyes as he reached out, his fingers trembling slightly. The fragile bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat, a promise unspoken but understood. His voice dropped, thick with regret and resolve. "I carry the weight of betrayal in my blood, but I will rewrite our destiny. No longer will fear dictate the fate of my daughter or myself." The nurse nodded, sensing the fragile alliance cementing between them. But before the night could soften further, the clinic's door creaked open once again. A cold gust swept through, carrying with it the stale scent of court politics and old, festering grudges. Layla stepped inside, her statuesque figure framed by the dim corridor light. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, pierced through the quiet sanctuary like daggers wrapped in silk. "So the secret finally surfaces," she said, voice laced with scorn and a bitterness that cut deeper than any blade. "Do you truly think hiding her in this forgotten place will erase the stain on our family?" The sheikh rose slowly, his muscles coiled yet poised, the air around him thickening with the power he wielded. "She is not a secret to be hidden and forgotten. She is my blood, I will claim her, no matter the cost." Layla's cruel smile twisted, shadows flickering across her angular face. "Cost? You have no idea what price awaits. The court will devour any weakness, and she will be the liability they use to undo everything you've built." The nurse stepped forward, placing herself quietly between the siblings. "Enough. This child deserves peace, not these venomous threats." For a fleeting moment, Layla's hardened mask cracked, revealing the hidden fissures beneath years of resentment. "You live in a fantasy, brother. Reality is far less forgiving." She turned abruptly, stepping back into the shadows. "Mark my words, the storm is coming." The door closed softly, leaving the room heavy with unspoken war and fragile hope. The child's tiny hand reached out, clutching the nurse's sleeve for comfort as her gaze locked slowly onto the sheikh. The distance between them, once vast and unbridgeable, seemed to narrow. With trembling fingers and timid looks, he bent down again, the desert's relentless heat mirrored in the fire of his eyes. "I will protect you. From the world, from the past, from those who seek to tear us apart." Outside, the ancient walls of the palace held their breath beneath the battered stars, the desert winds whispering secrets only the night could understand. A sudden movement caught his eye. Flicker in the courtyard shadows. He straightened sharply, senses alert, the weight of many battles heavy upon him. Figures cloaked in midnight watched, their intent veiled but unmistakably dangerous. Behind him, the nurse's steady presence was an anchor in a sea of shifting loyalties and looming betrayals. Together, they faced a future uncertain, one where love and loyalty collided with vengeance and deceit. The sheikh's fingers curled tightly around the child's small hand, a silent vow whispered from his lips, barely louder than the desert breeze. They will learn soon enough that the true power lies not in thrones or gold, but in the blood we refuse to deny. And as thunder rumbled in the distance, a fierce herald amidst the desert night, the glint of steel caught the moonlight far beyond the palace walls. The storm was no longer approaching. It had already arrived. The chill in the clinic lingered, coiling through the shadows like a whispered warning. The child's steady breathing was the only sound that dared defy the oppressive silence. The nurse's fingers glided tenderly over the fragile curve of the infant's cheek, each touch soaked in guarded hope and silent promises. The room felt suspended, caught between the looming storm outside and the fragile peace within. The billionaire sheikh remained frozen by the window, his silhouette carved in the silver light spilling from the desert night. His gaze was distant, haunted by memories clawing at the edges of his consciousness. The crumpled letter in his pocket burned against his skin, a relentless reminder that the past could no longer be. Confined to shadows, Khalid's urgent whisper still echoed in his ears, court rumors swirling like deadly sandstorms, factions maneuvering for power, and the threat escalating beyond anything the sheikh had anticipated. But the whispers, the schemers, they all paled beside the truth cradled now in his arms, his daughter. He moved away from the window, his footsteps finally breaking the hush. The nurse looked up, her eyes sharp and steady, despite the turmoil roiling beneath her calm exterior. He knelt beside the child, the faint scent of oud trailing from his robes mingling with the antiseptic air. A clash of two worlds, of power and fragility. I am no longer a man who can bury his failures beneath gold and pride. His voice whispered, raw and trembling, carrying the weight of years lost to denial. She is the compass I dared not follow until now. The child's fluttering eyes met his, pools of dark storm mirrored in those tiny depths. In that silent instant, he saw more than a secret to shield. He saw a beacon, fragile and fierce, demanding acknowledgement. The nurse's steady gaze met his, her silent understanding strengthening the fragile bond forming between them. She needs more than safety, she said quietly. She needs a place where her light is not dimmed by fear, a home where she can belong without hiding. His jaw tightened, the iron will softening for a fleeting moment. I will not fail her again, he vowed, fingers reaching out hesitantly to brush a stray curl from her brow. Not as a ruler, not as a man shaped by empire and pride, but as her father. The words hung in the air like a sacred vow, fragile, yet fierce enough to shatter centuries of silence. Outside, the desert winds whispered their ancient songs, carrying both promises and warnings. Suddenly, the heavy door creaked open again. The moment shattered like glass. Layla stepped through the threshold, her presence slicing through the fragile haven. Her eyes blazed with cold fire and bitterness, the scars of years etched into every line of her face. She paused, taking in the tableau of the child in the nurse's arms and the sheikh kneeling beside her, a man stripped bare of all pretense. So the secret finally has a face, she said, her voice a razor wrapped in silk, a shadow cast upon family's legacy. Do you truly believe hiding her in some forgotten corner will erase the stain, or the pain we refuse to face? The sheikh rose slowly, the power in his posture like a dormant tempest awakening. His eyes locked with hers, unyielding, a battle cry lodged within their depths. She is not a stain or a shadow. She is my blood. I will claim her, no matter the price. Layla's cruel smile twisted like barbed wire. You speak of price as if you understand the cost. The court watches, waiting to devour any weakness. Her gaze swept the room, heavy with unspoken threats. She will be used against you, a pawn in battles you cannot yet see. The nurse stepped forward without hesitation, a protective shield between the siblings. This child deserves peace, not the venom you spill. There will be no war here, not tonight. For a fleeting heartbeat, anger in Layla's eyes faltered. Beneath the surface, old wounds flickered, raw and unhealed. Then she turned abruptly, retreating into the shadows beyond the doorway. The storm comes, she warned, her voice fading like the last gust of desert wind. Be ready. The door's soft close left the room suffocated by whispered threats and fragile hope. The child, sensing the tension, reached out a tiny hand, clutching the nurse's silk shawl. Her gaze found the sheikh's, a silent understanding passing through the quiet space between them. He sank back down, the fierce desert heat cooling in his dark eyes, replaced by a solemn promise. No one will tear you from this world, he vowed, voice low and steady. Not the past, not my enemies, not even my own fears. Outside, the palace shuddered under the ancient weight of secrets and power struggles. The night had become a volatile arena where loyalties fractured and unseen enemies circled. His grip tightened around the child's hand, a silent anchor in a sea of shifting dangers. A movement caught his attention, a shadow stirring beyond the courtyard walls. His eyes flashed with fierce awareness as silhouettes cloaked in midnight shifted with silent intent. Behind him, the nurse's quiet presence remained a steadfast refuge amidst mounting peril. His whispered vow floated into the charged silence. They will learn soon enough. Blood is not given, it is chosen. And I have chosen her. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Fierce and unrelenting, mirroring the storm now fully awakened within the Sheikh's soul. But as the first crack of lightning split the desert sky, a secret figure stepped from the shadows, cloaked, unseen yet deadly close, eyes burning not with love, but with the cold fire of vengeance. The fragile hope binding the Sheikh to his daughter trembled on the edge of destruction. And in the heart of the night, a single word escaped the lips of this shadow as it vanished into the darkness, echoing like a curse that would shatter everything. Betrayal. The night deepened around the modest clinic. The faint hum of desert winds, muffled by thick walls, bearing witness to a fragile calm. Yet beneath that stillness, tension pulsed like a hidden heartbeat, keeping time with the restless. Thoughts burning through the billionaire Sheikh's tormented mind. He stood just inside the threshold, a silhouette carved from shadows and moonlight, the lingering scent of oud mingling with the sterile antiseptic air. His dark eyes bore into the child nestled gently in the nurse's arms, tracing the delicate curve of her cheek, the faint rise and fall of her breath. She was a fragile thread, connecting a past he had fled, and a future he dared no longer deny. I have carried my kingdom on these shoulders. His voice broke the silence, low and rough with emotion. But this child carries a weight even greater than my empire. The nurse's calm gaze met his, firm beneath the flicker of candle flame, unwavering, despite the swells of pain and regret. She saw there. She needs more than protection, she said softly. She needs a home, a place where no one will ever use her existence as a weapon. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his dark hair, the fine silk of his robe rustling with the movement. The grand halls and gilded marble of his palace might glitter with power, but here, in this small room, far from court intrigues, the truth was brutal and undeniable. 18 years, he whispered, pain sharpening his voice as if each syllable were a blade. I let pride blind me to a truth that could have saved her from shadow. I was a man deafened by fear, burying love beneath walls of stone. The child stirred, tiny fingers curling instinctively around the nurse's shawl. Her wide eyes fluttered open, swirling with stormy depths that mirrored the tempest raging inside the man who sought redemption. Her mother. The Sheikh's voice cracked, fragile beneath the weight of memory. Layla, the sister I once trusted with all my heart. She was never meant to stand in the way of love. A silence fell, thick and suffocating, before the nurse's steady voice cut through. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can fight for the future she deserves. For her future. His gaze locked on hers, a storm of regret and fierce determination flickering behind his dark veil. Then I will face whatever storms the court conjures. I will protect her from every betrayal, whether born of blood or shadow. Suddenly the clinic's heavy door creaked open again. The faint murmur of footsteps was swallowed by the charged stillness before another presence entered, a soft whisper of silk and danger. Layla. Her figure was framed by the muted corridor light, her eyes sharp and filled with a venomous fire. The years of estrangement had only deepened the icy edge in her gaze. So, you have come to claim what you've hidden so long, she said, voice like silk, stretched over razor blades. That fragile secret, wrapped in innocence, thin armor for a legacy soaked in deception. The sheikh rose slowly, the fire in his eyes unyielding. She is more than a secret, more than a bargaining chip for courtly games. She is my daughter, and I will not let you tarnish what little hope remains. Layla's cruel smile twisted, shadows flickering across her stern face. You speak of hope as if it could survive the knives of those who wait in the dark. This child's existence will unravel everything you've built. The nurse took a cautious step forward, placing herself firmly between the siblings. Her voice was calm but resolute, a quiet shield against the storm. Enough. This child deserves peace, not war, not the poison of power and pride. For a fleeting heartbeat, Layla's features softened, haunted by ghosts no one dared name. But the bitterness returned swiftly, reinforced by years of bitterness and pain. Watch your heart, brother, she warned. Enemies circle. Your fortress of gold will crumble with one well-aimed strike. And this child, this truth you cling to, will be the raid's key. Sheikh's jaw tightened, every muscle taut with determination and pain. Then let them come, he growled, voice low but ironclad. I will stand against every shadow. This family, this child, will not be broken. Layla's gaze lingered for a moment longer, sharp as the desert wind, before turning abruptly to vanish into the night's waiting arms. The door closed behind her, leaving a silence heavy with threats and unspoken wars. The child's small hand reached out, faint but insistent, seeking the warmth and safety woven into the nurse's silk shawl. Her yearning gaze found the sheikh's, wide, unblinking, already carrying the weight of battles she could not yet fathom. He knelt beside her, his hardened exterior melting away in the glow of the lamp's soft light. I will build a sanctuary from these storms, he whispered, fingers brushing a stray lock from her face. No throne, no jewel can protect as fiercely as a father's love. Outside, the desert held its breath. The ancient winds ceased their mournful howls, as if awaiting a verdict, one that would shake palaces and hearts alike. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the darkness beyond the courtyard, moving with the silence of death. Cloaked in midnight, a figure's eyes gleamed coldly with dangerous intent, watching with a predator's patience. They were a ghost from a time best forgotten, a keeper of revenge long simmering beneath the blazing sun and shifting sands. At that moment, The nurse felt the Sheikh's trembling fingers tighten around the child's small hand, a grip born not of fear, but fierce protection. And then, in the stillness, a voice, as cold and pitiless as desert stone, whispered through the night, "You still do not know who truly holds the power." The air crackled as distant thunder shattered the quiet. The storm had arrived, and with it, a reckoning that would change everything. The desert night had finally surrendered to the pale light of dawn, the first rays of sun spilling slowly over the horizon and painting the palace walls in hues of gold and rose. Inside, the grand halls felt quieter, softer, the storm that had raged through the years, shrinking back into fragments of memory. The billionaire sheikh stood by the window of his private chambers, his eyes tracing the awakening city below. But his heart no longer carried the weight of secrets he had once feared. In the small room where the child had once lain, hidden among sterile walls and whispers, peace had blossomed. The nurse sat beside the child now, no longer silent or fragile, but alive with the bright spark of a future reclaimed. The little girl smiled, reaching out for the man who approached with steps lighter than ever before. The sheikh knelt, catching her small hand in his, and the world outside softened with the promise of what they had built together. "I am yours," he said, voice steady, but filled with a tenderness that would have surprised anyone who knew the man of iron and empire. "Not out of duty, but because you are my blood, my hope, my only truth." She looked up at him with eyes wide and, knowing, as if she understood the years lost and the bonds mended in silence. There was no longer fear in that gaze, only the quiet warmth of belonging. The palace court, once restless and filled with whispers of scandal, had accepted the truth the sheikh had finally embraced. His estranged sister Layla, though wounded by the past, stood beside them in cautious reconciliation, her sharp edges softened by the truth of family and forgiveness. Together, they had dismantled the walls of suspicion, brick by brick, proving that love could be the fiercest shield against even the cruelest of machinations. At the throne room, the council gathered, no longer with glances sharp with doubt, but with respect, tempered by the sheikh's courage to face his past. His authority was no longer a fragile throne to be questioned, but a fortress molded by truth and unwavering resolve. Khalid, ever loyal and steadfast, remained at the sheikh's side, a silent guardian of the new era dawning over their desert kingdom. Their shared history was one of battles fought not only with swords, but with hearts willing to change. Walking with the child cradled gently in his arms, the sheikh moved through the gardens of the palace, once barren, now blooming with fragrant jasmine and vibrant roses gifted by the neighbors who had witnessed his transformation. The sweet scent mingled with the desert breeze, carrying away shadows that had long clung to these grounds. The nurse walked close behind, her eyes shining with gratitude and unspoken pride. What had once been a fragile alliance had grown into a family bound by sacrifice, courage, and a love that would no longer be hidden. As the sun rose higher, bathing the world in warmth, the sheikh's voice broke the comfortable silence. "We will rebuild," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Not just walls, but the trust lost, the years stolen from her. The child giggled, her tiny fingers twining through his, a living promise of all that was to come. No longer a secret behind closed doors, she had become the beating heart of a kingdom, ready to embrace a future woven together. In the courtyard, servants bustled with newfound hope, their smiles genuine as they prepared for celebrations long overdue. The palace that had once echoed with silent grudges now hummed with laughter and music, the rhythm of a healing world. Late afternoon found the sheikh seated beneath the shade of an ancient olive tree, the child nestled beside him, her head resting gently on his shoulder. Layla approached quietly, carrying a delicate bouquet, offering it without words, but with a softness that melted the last remnants of bitterness. The three shared a moment heavy with meaning, a silent vow that whatever storms came, they would face them united. The dusk wrapped the palace in a golden glow, the stars beginning to pierce the deepening sky like promises whispered on the wind. The billionaire sheikh looked toward the horizon, feeling the vast desert stretch endlessly before them. A world of infinite possibilities born from the courage to face truth and embrace love. His daughter blinked sleepily, her fingers curling once again around his, a tether that held not only two souls, but the future of an empire reborn. For the first time in many years, his heart was light, because in the heart of the desert, under the endless sky, a single truth remained etched in every grain of sand. Love, when claimed and embraced, could conquer even the deepest betrayals. And they would face their days ahead, no longer as fractured shadows, but as a family, whole and fiercely bound. The sun rose fully now, spilling warmth over land and legacy alike, lighting the path for a new dawn, where secrets could no longer hide, and love ruled supreme.